Every September, my phone starts ringing more than it did all summer, and not because September is my birthday month. Buyers who disappeared in July suddenly want to schedule showings. Sellers who have been sitting on the market for months want to start having that different conversation. People who spent the summer saying, we'll figure it out after our vacation, finally decide it's time. And after watching this happen for more than a decade, I've noticed something. It isn't because September is suddenly a magical month on the calendar. It's because September is the month when people stop waiting. The interesting part, most of them don't even realize they were waiting. They think the important season is spring. But if I want to understand where the Miami real estate market is actually headed, I watch for the month of September. Because September doesn't just tell you what's happening today, it usually tells you what's going to happen for the rest of the year. I'm Rebecca Cruz with RealMiami, and today I want to walk you through the patterns I watch every September so that whether you're buying, selling, or just trying to understand the market, you leave thinking about September differently than you did before. Spring feels like the market. I get it completely. Open houses are packed, listings are fresh, there's an energy to the whole thing that's hard to ignore. And spring is genuinely active. I'm not arguing against that. But here's the distinction I've come to make after watching this play out year after year. Spring is when everyone's putting their best foot forward. Sellers price with optimism. Buyers compete with urgency. September is totally different. By then, buyers know what they can actually afford. Sellers know what the market is actually willing to pay. That's why I trust September more than spring. Spring tells you what people want. September tells you what they'll accept. And in real estate, those two things are almost never the same number. Before I explain what September reveals, I need to explain what summer builds, because summer is where the setup happens and almost nobody is watching it. Here's what's actually happening from June through August. People travel, open houses get quieter, buyers disappear for a while, and for sellers who are still active, that quiet has a cost that accumulates with every passing week. Here's one number that I look at more than almost anything else in September: days on market. Most people don't think about it, but every extra week a home sits changes the conversation. A seller with 10 days on market in April is negotiating with confidence. 3 months later, it's a different conversation. And it's not just psychology. The mortgage doesn't just stop, insurance doesn't stop, and HOA fees don't stop. The longer a property sits, the more it costs the seller to hold it, and that cost quietly influences what they're willing to accept. Summer builds up pressure quietly. September is when it gets released. This is the part I look forward to every single year, because September is when I stop guessing about the market and start reading it. Those are two totally different things. So what am I actually looking at? First, are buyers actually back? Not just inquiring, but are they scheduling showings, submitting offers, and showing up? The buyers who come back in September usually aren't browsing anymore. These are people who have been thinking about a decision all summer. September is when they start moving. Second, are sellers actually negotiating? Not just willing to talk, but are they genuinely flexible in ways they were not in April? The optimism from spring has been worked on by summer. What's left is usually a seller who is ready to do a deal. Third is inventory that sat all summer suddenly moving. When I see properties that had no activity in July and August go under contract in September, that's one of the clearest signals, and it shows me that buyers are back and they're serious. Fourth, are price adjustments accelerating? When I see a cluster of reductions in the first 2 weeks of September, that's the market correcting itself, and that's when deals actually start happening. Those four signals taken together give me a very clear read on the rest of the year than anything I see in spring. And here's where Miami gets really interesting, because everything I've described so far applies to most real estate markets to some degree. But Miami's September is totally different. And this is the part most generic real estate advice completely misses. First, the snowbird effect. Every year, the first 2 weeks of September bring a wave of calls from buyers in New York, Chicago, Boston, and Toronto. These aren't exploratory calls. These are people who have already decided they want to be in Miami from November through April. September is just when they start turning that decision into real action. Second, the international buyer cycle. Miami draws from a global buyer pool in a way almost no other American city does. And that global pool operates on a different rhythm than domestic buyers. Buyers from Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Europe tend to tour properties in June, go home for the summer, process the decision, and call us in September. This year, especially after the World Cup brought millions of visitors through Miami this summer, I'm watching international inquiry patterns very closely. When people spend a week actually walking through Coconut Grove and Coral Gables for the first time, that decision process gets started. September is typically when the follow-up calls begin. Third, the school calendar effect. In neighborhoods like Coconut Grove, Coral Gables, and Pinecrest, when school starts in late August, families suddenly have a concrete anchor. They know which neighborhoods put their kids in the right zones, and they know that if they want to be settled for next school year, the decision has to happen now, not in spring. Fourth, the corporate relocating timing. September is when companies finalize their year-end moves. The people being relocated to Miami aren't browsing. They have a move-in date. That urgency is real. And then there's something specific to this year, the CSRS deadline. December 31st is the hard compliance deadline for Florida's condo reserve requirements. Some owners are making the decision to sell before any assessment lands. For buyers who know how to evaluate this properly, there are opportunities in the condo market right now that won't exist after the year ends. Put all of that together, the snowbirds, the international buyers, families, corporate relocations, CSRS motivated sellers. Suddenly, September starts looking very different than it does in most cities. So what am I paying attention to right now? There are pockets of this market where inventory has been sitting longer than I typically expect coming out of spring and summer. Parts of Coconut Grove, certain price points in Coral Gables, and areas of South Miami are all reflecting a gap between what sellers originally expected and what the market has actually delivered this year. Those are the pockets I'm focused on right now. Those sellers have been carrying costs since April or May. Some of them are entering a different kind of conversation than they were having 6 months ago. At the same time, I think international inquiry volume this September is going to be higher than usual, which is a direct result of the World Cup visibility Miami got this summer. That follow-through is coming, and in the condo market, the CSRS deadline pressure is going to become more visible as we get closer to December. The buyers who position themselves correctly in September and October are going to have more motivated sellers to work with than they'll find any other point this year. Okay, so what does all of this actually mean? If you're a buyer, go back through everything you looked at this spring. Not to second guess yourself, but to look at those properties with fresh eyes and current data. Check the days on market, look at the price history. Something that felt $50,000 or $75,000 out of reach in April may have changed. The summer may have changed that conversation. And if nothing about that property itself has changed, and if you haven't started yet, September is genuinely a good time to begin. Not because of manufactured urgency, but because the buyers who are prepared when the right opportunity comes up in fall are the ones who actually close. If you're a seller, September is when I would have an honest conversation about your pricing, where it sits relative to today's market. The buyers who show up in September have been thinking about this for months. They've done the research, they've measured, and they're looking for pricing that reflects reality, not spring of 2023. If you've been on the market since spring and haven't had serious activity, September is when that conversation needs to happen. And if you own a condo in a building that has fully resolved its CSRS situation, don't wait until December to figure out your options. That window is closing. Every September, people ask me, is it a good time to buy? Is it a good time to sell? I actually think that is totally the wrong question. The better question is, what is September telling us? Summer builds pressure quietly. September is when it gets released. And if you know how to read that moment, you'll see opportunities that most people completely miss. Spring tells you what people want. September tells you what they'll accept. The people who understand that, who know how to read what September is revealing instead of waiting for spring to tell them what to do, are consistently the ones who find the best opportunities and make the most informed decisions. If you're thinking about buying or selling and you'd like to talk through your specific goals, I'd love to help. Send me a message, leave a comment below, or reach out using the information in the description. And if you enjoy understanding why the Miami market behaves the way it does, not just what's happening, make sure you subscribe. In the next episode, we're taking everything we talked about today and applying it to one of Miami's most sought out neighborhoods, Pinecrest. We'll break down who it's really for, what makes it different from Coral Gables in South Miami, and whether it's actually worth the premium buyers are paying today. If you're considering Pinecrest or just curious why demand there has stayed so strong, you won't want to miss it. I'm Rebeca Cruz with RealMiami. Subscribe and I'll see you at the next one. Listings are fresh and here's one number I look at more almost for buyers who know how to, and you haven't started, when the right opportunity comes up. And if you know how to read that moment, you'll see opportunities that most